A colleague of mine, the Reverend William Wilson, tells a story about a local high school football team in the city where he used to serve. He says this particular football team had a remarkable success record. They had amassed a winning record for nearly 60 consecutive seasons. This is fairly rare in high school athletics. He continues, though now retired, Bill Chappell served as the head coach for many of those years. My colleague shared that Bill is a humble, intense, and thoughtful person. He is a person of strong character and integrity and is loved by many. One day, at a pre-season dinner for local fans and parents, Bill was asked, "What kind of team are we going to have this year, Coach?" Bill thought for a moment and replied, "Ask me in 20 years." Thinking that the coach had not understood the question, the fan asked his question again with more passion. Bill calmly replied with the same words, "Ask me in 20 years." Exasperated, the fan raised his voice and asked more ardently, "Coach, what is the team going to be like this year?" And Bill responded, "Look, I know what you're asking, but what you are asking is the wrong question. We'll have a fair football team, but we really won't know what kind of team it is until 20 years have passed. You see, we are about building character in young people, and we won't know how that turns out for at least 20 years. You see, the coach was on to something when he said that high school football was about building character. It was not about the games or the records or the wins and losses. It was about the young people learning how to work together towards a shared goal. For the coach, football was about teaching how to win with humility and how to lose with grace, how to work through differences with integrity, learn from mistakes, learn cooperation. These life skills you might learn as a young person, but they take a lifetime of practice to get good at. And this is true for a religious life as well. What we do together each Sunday morning and during the week is not just about these moments in time, but about the future. The ultimate purpose of church, of a religious life, is to repair the brokenness in the world through personal and societal transformation. The goal of the church is to offer hope to those daunted by despair. Our mission is to light the beacon so that those are lost may find their way. We do not know how our time together will turn out. It may take 20 years or so to discover. This congregation, like all congregations, and like all institutions made up of diverse individuals, is rife with human variety. We cannot help but bring our full humanness to church. This includes our many skills and passions and interests, and also our more challenging sides. Because we care so deeply about a congregation, we may develop strong opinions about the way certain things must be done. And because we have volunteered many hours, we may find that we have a hard time sharing some of the work. And because we are human, we make mistakes. We say things we later wish we had not said. Metaphorically, we step on each other's toes while we are backing up quickly out of the way of an elbow that's coming towards us fast. At some point, during the time that we are involved with a congregation, we may be hurt, become irked, or frustrated, or angry. For the most part, we are not trying to hurt each other. We're not trying to step on each other's toes. But part of what we are doing together is learning how to stay in relationship after we frustrate each other. These are some of the normal human interactions that happen within a community, that happen within a congregation that has chosen to walk together. And these are the gifts of what community offers us. Because each time we metaphorically step on someone's toes, we have an opportunity to apologize and to be forgiven. If somebody's elbow bonks us in the arm, we have an opportunity to forgive. We get to practice assuming good intentions by others. It is through a lifetime of practicing to be a better person that we transform ourselves and our society. However, human institutions often fall into patterns or ruts that may be challenging to shift out of. When this happens, a community may need to come together in order to push itself out of the rut or out of the pattern. A congregation may need to choose to engage in a concerted culture change in order to become a sanctuary for transformation again. A few years back, the Unitarian Universalist Association began to see that some of the congregations in the association seemed to be stuck in cyclical patterns, spinning their wheels but not moving forward. This led to a new kind of ministry called developmental ministry, where congregations would investigate their cyclical patterns and then choose specific goals to help them move forward. One example of a congregation who chose to enter into developmental ministry was the congregation in Boulder, Colorado. That congregation began as a fellowship much like this congregation. A fellowship is a congregation that started by a small group of individuals and families without professional leadership. That congregation began 5 years before this congregation. Over the years, the Boulder congregation had transitioned from a covenanted religious community of congregation members and friends into what acted like a messy, overgrown family. They had become a group of people who quit when things were not going their way, rather than work through differences. One woman said that when she became the board president in the early 1990s, friends told her, "You're going to need a sledgehammer to call the board meetings to order." There was so much infighting and conflict that the congregation dwindled to about 80 members. Because most people who come to church do not come to join the infighting, the congregation missed opportunities to open their doors and welcome those who had come to check out the Unitarian Universalists. The congregation's financial health was grim. They had no savings, had not paid their mortgage in years, and were not supporting the association with their dues, and had completely stopped repairing the building. The turning point for the Boulder congregation was when they flunked a secret visitor evaluation by a representative from the region when that person came by unannounced. This was about 10 years ago. The board at the time took a good long look at the congregation and decided that they needed to get help, or else the congregation may not have survived into the future. They contacted the district offices and reached out to the association's office in Boston, and it was recommended that the board and congregation figure out just exactly what they needed to do in order to thrive, and then hire a minister to help them do that. In 2008, the board contracted with their new developmental minister to help the congregation become a vibrant and flourishing congregation. Over 5 short years, they became what is known as a breakthrough congregation, surpassing all expectations and growing both in numbers and capacity to repair the brokenness of the world. They worked hard to acquire the skills of radical hospitality. Not only did they have trained, welcome people who cheerfully welcomed every person, every family, and every individual who came to visit, but they also developed methods to help everyone find ways to become involved in the congregation soon after arriving. Each member and friend of the congregation goes out of their way to help everyone feel that they belong. They have a young adult group of about 55 people. who attend on Sunday mornings and also meet during the week at their Spirituality on Tap gathering. The young adult group has been so successful that the over 35 age group started their own weekday gathering, Wine and Spirit. Nearly all the members of the congregation have attended the UUA's Regional Leadership School, learning what healthy congregational leadership looks like. The congregation fixed up their building, added solar panels, and a new playground, after gaining a better understanding of the costs involved in maintaining the congregation. They developed new capacity for generosity and giving. They have done amazingly well in a short amount of time, working together to their shared vision. Fred Cole, a member for 47 years, says about the changes, "There is something better, and it can be done. That's the message that we can carry forward." He says, "Change takes work, dedication, and commitment, and it takes the whole village." Last year, the congregation in Boulder called a minister after 7 years of focused developmental ministry. We do not know what the outcome of the work that the congregation has done, but my guess is that in 20 years, we will see the fruits of their labor. 4 years ago, this congregation entered into a developmental ministry with your former minister, Reverend Ian. I understand that you did great work with him. I understand that you have become more caring and kind with each other and your minister and your staff. You made some hard decisions, but important decisions, when you decided to no longer focus on the 2 satellites in Henderson and Somerville. You experienced what it was like to be in healthy relationship with a religious leader, among other things. Last summer, I was hired by your elected leaders, the Board of Trustees. I am also a developmental ministry, and we are in developmental ministry together. In addition to serving you and the mission of the congregation through all the regular duties of a minister, I am also tasked with working on specific goals to help the congregation move forward. The goals that we are working on together were created out of the work that we did last fall with the district UUA staff when they were here with us for a weekend. And they're good goals, I think. Developmental ministry is about culture change. Developmental ministry asks us as a congregation and religious leader to look closely at the patterns, ruts, and habits of the congregation, and then to work together to move away from those habits which do not serve the greater purpose of the congregation. We have 7 developmental ministry goals, which we are working on together as a congregation and minister. These goals are to build a deep and trusting partnership with shared leadership over time, review current practices in order to develop policies and procedures that support vibrant ministry, leadership, and programs, assist the board and congregation in discerning the purpose and meaning of our covenantal faith, and to live out its mission within the congregation and the larger community. We are to integrate the goal of we are going to be the best 120-member congregation we can be. We are going to support healthy boundaries and dissuade unhealthy behaviors through the covenant of good relations. We are going to build a sense of shared commitment to the mission of the congregation. And eventually we will identify what is needed in space and location to best support our mission in Las Vegas. Each year, the board and I are tasked to review these goals, assess how the congregation is doing, and make changes if needed. In the coming months, as the newly elected board and I begin our new term together, we will be considering which of the goals would be most beneficial to address this year. Your thoughts and reflections are always welcome. The board members are your elected officials and need your input in order to best represent your highest aspirations. Ultimately, we do not know what the future holds, And the magic 8-ball only gives us cryptic messages like maybe, ask again, yes, and maybe we shouldn't tell you now. However, I believe that together as we move towards our shared future, we are fulfilling the visions of our ancestors who founded this congregation and the dreams spoken of in our responsive reading this morning. When our ancestors spoke of heaven, they were speaking of this moment. When they went on about nirvana, they imagined a time like this. When they sang of paradise, it was this morning they imagined. A time when all the mysteries of life and death are blended in a community of praise. When the bones of ancient lovers are given flesh again in our own bodies. Teachers of long ago speaking of love and truth, once more in lives so ordinary, they are extraordinary. And if someone asks us how our ministry is going, answer with ask me in 20 years. Ask in 20 years.